Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session. It is Tuesday, 23rd of June. Today on our GradChat series, we're here to welcome our guests from the NTEU on discussing workplace rights for students, and in particular, postgrad students from a GSA point of view. So firstly, my name's Tavita Lasuma. I'm the General Manager of Student Engagement, and I, along with our CEO, Rasha, host a series of webinars to talk about certain issues and support services that are out there for our postgrads at UniMelb, and today is no different. So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land of the Yakut Wilang clan of the Bunwarang, where I'm actually hosting from today, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and recognize the strength, resilience, and capacity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait people in this land. So I'm extremely lucky to have on board two of our. And also, we will be welcoming our Senior Policy Coordinator, Dr. Natasha Abrahams, when she gets on the call. So firstly, we're here with Annette Herrera, who is a postgraduate alumni from the University of Melbourne, class of 2018, with 2 Masters in Social Policy and International Relations. Her studies focused on Australian immigration and multicultural policy, labour rights and international union movements. Wow. Since moving to Melbourne to complete her postgraduate studies in 2015, Annette has worked in continuing fixed term and casual roles at UniMelb. Annette is a casual staff representative and acting vice president for professional staff for NTEU UniMelb branch, and represents university workers, both academic and professional. She works on campaigns and advocacy with the GSA and NTEU relating to tutor wage theft, and has worked to build a strong correlation between us, GSA, and the NTEU. And it also works in the Chancery Research Strategy Office as the Research and Strategy Project Officer. So a big welcome to Annette. And before we let you kickstart, Annette, I might also introduce Tim Kariotis. Apologies, Tim, if that was incorrect. He's our NTEU delegate for HDRs at UniMelb. And so Timothy is actually a PhD candidate in the School of Computing and Information Systems, as well as a research fellow at the University of Melbourne School of Government. Since the start of his PhD, Tim has held several professional and academic and teaching casual contracts. Tim's PhD research is actually exploring the design of digital mental health technologies from a critical perspective, drawing on MAD theory and survivor theory. Tim also leads a Melbourne Disability Institute funded project into the digitization of disability services in Victoria. As a graduate student, Tim has experienced firsthand the sometimes wonderful but mostly weird identity of being both a student, quality staff and staff member, and the challenging power relationships, workload balance, and precarity that comes with these multiple roles. Look, big welcome to both you, Tim and Annette. Thank you so much for being on board. And yeah, so what do you have for us today? I know that we want to talk about NTEU and what that can do in supporting the students at UniMelb.
Well, thanks for that great intro, Tavita. And before I begin, I want to acknowledge as well that we're here on stolen land, and I'm calling in to the Zoom conference from City of Melbourne. So I want to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I guess just to start off, I think that one of the reasons that Tim and I are here today is because we have this great fostered relationship and collaboration with the GSA, and we want to talk a bit today about workers' rights from the perspectives of postgrad students who often work at Melbourne Uni. And obviously, when you're doing your postgrad as well, you might be working elsewhere while you're doing your studies. So that's certainly the case for a majority of postgrads. I can kind of jump in with a couple of things, but you know, just kind of off the bat, you know, this might be for students sometimes the first you know, going to university might be the first introduction to what a union actually is. And so just to kind of start off with that definition, it's basically an association of workers. That's kind of at its most basic level. It's a legal entity, so we are the National Tertiary Education Union is the union for staff across higher education, and often those staff are students. And so I guess some of the main functions of the union is not only to bargain for working conditions and better ones, but it's also about ensuring things like the dignity of work, and about having a platform to also link in not only economic justice but social justice. So there's quite a lot that the NTEU does and has done with the GSA, not just around the workers' rights, although that is a big issue, around ensuring people get paid on time, that your employer doesn't take your wages if you owe them, but also things around climate justice and just transition, which is a massive issue across sectors, but something in particular that we've seen a lot of the student movements focus on, both in high schools and in higher ed. So Tim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything here as well.
I think you've given a wonderful definition of what a union is. And I think what I would add is that obviously at the University of Melbourne and at all universities, we have the student union. So at University of Melbourne, we're lucky to have 2 student unions, both UMSU and GSA, and they play a really key role in, one, having that voice for the students, and also, I guess, navigating that relationship with the union that you may also be represented by if you're a staff member, and that's a really important relationship and a really important one for us as students and staff to navigate, so we get the most out of having our rights represented.
Absolutely. So I might ask a question there, Annette. I know you have a few slides to sort of take us through, but I mean, I guess in these, I mean, this might be a deep discussion question, but I guess especially in these times, I guess the union has been looked for more support in more recent times, just with all the different parts of our lives that are affected by this global pandemic. And I think, just to reiterate that, as a GSA representative, I think being part of a union, especially in these times, provides an extra layer of support that, to know that there is an organized group of people thinking about the knock-on effects of certain conditions. So no, I think, as a member of the GSA, we're definitely proud to be associated with NTEU.
Absolutely. I think especially right now, during these COVID times, it's so important to realize that it's not only is our advocacy connected. GSA, focusing on quite a bit around advocacy for postgrads in multiple ways, but also how students' learning conditions are also tied to the working conditions of staff here. So there is that synergy, and so when we do collaborate, it's fantastic because some of these issues, like you said, Tavita, they cover quite a lot of different areas, and so and nothing says that more than having to work from home and navigate the issues that have come up with COVID.
Yep.
A couple of things being around, impacts to in terms of just studying in general, and more broadly equity around studying from home,
Yep.
but also things like research and how that's impacted. So I think during these times, we've seen more engagement with the union, not less, because I think it's just I'd say it's something that we look for in times of crisis, is that that connection and solidarity. We know that we're stronger when we come together to kind of address some of these issues that are right now playing out.
Absolutely. So did you want to talk us through a bit about the NTEU and how they can support, I guess, postgrad students in terms of workplace rights? I think as we move through the session, I'd probably like to talk about a few of the other representative actions that NTEU have been part of more recently. And I also have Natasha on board, Dr. Natasha Abrahams, Senior Policy Coordinator, who probably talk to and sort of match, I guess, because a lot of our values are aligned from the NTEU and GSA, which is nice. And so I guess I'll probably ask Natasha to say a few words later on. But look, if I can throw it back to you guys, would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think I can, I might just give just a little bit of just an overview of the sector and what employment looks like in higher ed for those that are interested in what that looks like. And then I might just hand it over to Tim to talk about some of the fantastic work around the HDR campaigns that deal with that blurred line of study and work. So just for those that are interested in a career in academia, it is obviously quite rewarding, but it is also quite challenging. And even before the COVID crisis in Australia, we see insecure employment in the sector being quite high. So in Victoria in particular, we have the reality that 2 out of 3 staff members, so this is academic and professional, are actually in insecure employment. And unfortunately, Melbourne Uni is #1 in insecure employment in Australia. So that this in particular is a stress for and you know, an issue for not only teaching and research, but also you know, issues for staff who are on, let's say, work visas and are international, or you know, staff with caring responsibilities and just, I guess, throughout that kind of career trajectory. So I think that's something that is good to know, that it is, you know, if you are embarking on a career in academia, that you might not have gone into higher education to be union, but if you're passionate about higher education, you will be a unionist because we actually need to change this problem and address it. And that was something that was an issue before the crisis. And so in particular, that has implications for HDRs. And so that's some of the campaigns that Tim has been working on. I'll just hand it over to you, Tim, to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Annette. And thank you for bringing up the point of the mass casualisation of our workforce, because there are so many people who have finished their PhD only to go into a life of casual work at this university and others. So it is a key point that ours as HDRs must be thinking about and organising about now. And there have been a number of wonderful HDR students and candidates across the university who have been organising since the start of this pandemic. Many of you will probably remember the start of this pandemic. We were the last student group to be contacted about what was going to happen to us, and very little happened for us in terms of support. So since then, there's been a Facebook group set up for HDRs to organise on. There's weekly meetings pushing back against some of the rhetoric that supposedly we don't need extensions unless we're gravely unwell or our lives have been completely upended. And also pushing back against the barriers to support. We know a number of HDR students who have applied for the emergency fund, or who applied for COVID-19 leave in March, and who still haven't been contacted about that. So there's a lot to do in this space. And I think one of the biggest challenges for workers and for HDRs is things are very fragmented at UniMil. Each faculty has their own narrative. Each faculty in a union is you actually have the power to have really open discussions with other people and other faculties, which doesn't always happen, sadly, when you're in other groups in the university. And I think that's one of the powerful things about the HDR organising, which has been happening at the moment, is I'm in engineering and computing and information systems, and I can talk to people in arts, and we can start to strategize about what our different faculties are providing and start to advocate for a bit more quality across the faculties, in acknowledgement that some faculties do have a bit more capacity to provide support, and saying that really we need a universal approach, because let's all be honest, in the COVID situation, we've all been impacted to some level, some more than others, but we've all been impacted. And the union has done a really great job in terms of organising staff, and I think that where we're slowly seeing more HDRs getting involved, and usually via the pathway of being a casual. There's a really great coalition being built at the moment between casual workers and HDRs, in acknowledgement that many HDRs are casual workers and do rely on casual work, and probably entered their PhD with the promise of casual work, especially those who don't have scholarships, and are now facing the prospect of having to somehow finish a PhD without that casual work. So, you know, we're really pushing as casuals, as HDRs, in alignment with the union, with the GSA, with UMSU, that we need protections for casual staff. At the moment, the university is not providing protections. So a big part of the campaign to summarise the HDRs has been universal extensions available to all students if needed. Looking at how we protect casual work in acknowledgement that HDRs rely on that, and then looking at how we reduce the barriers to support, so that if you're in a crisis, you don't need to jump through 1,000 forms and 20,000 other hoops to get the support you need in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for pointing out some of the barriers and restrictions and issues facing HDRs/casual tutors, because you said it before, with a lot of the students we engage with are HDRs, but also rely on those casual works to sort of get them through their life at UniMelb. So thanks for making that clear. I guess for GSA too, working in this space, we are definitely looking to support any student, HDR or coursework. And you talked about those forms, and yeah, there has been a significant number of students saying that there are issues with applying because of it itself being a barrier. So we've actually just started providing services within GSA as a direct person to help with the application process. So hearing this information, we working with the guys within Stop One who moderate or manage the application process, find out what the common issues are that are taking place to delay or potentially deny some of these applications, and then give it to our person in-house to be able to use that as a framework to help put together a good application for a student, so at least it gets through those. I mean, you talk about hoops, to get through the hoops, because I think the one thing that we don't want to say is, that you shouldn't be getting the fund. I think it's just making sure you provide the correct information to get through these hoops. I think that's one of the first steps that GSA has literally just started implementing. As of, I think it was yesterday, I linked up our person with the guys within Stop One to make sure that if students were having issues, to get in touch with us, and through Natasha's team, we'll be promoting that through our channels to make sure that if people are confused about the process or don't understand the feedback that was given to you by an application, that we would get involved to make sure that it would, I guess, reduce those what is already a stressful process, to reduce those stresses if possible. So yeah, totally acknowledge that Tim, absolutely.
And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think what I would add to that, and what I say to every student I come across, is that the reason we have a union, NTEU, UMSU and GSA, is because we need someone to advocate for students and workers, because the university won't do that themselves. So I always say to students, if you think that you have a right to something, a right to support, a right to that extra funding in the middle of a pandemic, you need to go and search that out, because the university, not to get too political, but the university won't make it easy and won't throw it at you in lights and beautiful colours. And sadly, the work does fall on students and falls on the GSA and falls on UMSU and falls on the NTEU to do that work. So I always say to students, if you think you have the right to something, go out and have that conversation with your union, with your colleagues and your peers, because more than likely you do have that right. It's just you've got to work out what hoops you've got to jump through and jump through them correctly to actually get that right.
It's that navigation piece, isn't it, Tim? To be able to help someone help you along those paths. It's not always a straight line. And so, I totally agree. And we're actually trying to build a better process to support the students through this time. Actually, I had a question that might lead into some of your information, Annette or Tim. We talked about membership because with the NTEU, how does membership work?
So the membership, it's basically for postgrads. We have a free membership. So if you're studying at the university, you can just apply for free. And that is on one of my slides.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's the nteu.org.au/join. So very easy. Or you can join if you're working. There's different levels of membership based on if you're casual or fixed term or continuing. And so it basically works out to be 1% of your salary, but less if you're a casual staff member. So that works out to be, like basically 3 coffees a month, is how I put it. But in terms of what Tim had mentioned as well, it's with that membership is also you're part of you're literally part of a movement. We do a lot of engagement with our casuals and our HDR members, and are always looking for ways to grow that. And so at Melbourne Uni in particular, our casual membership has probably doubled in a year. So because we have been focusing on so many campaigns and working on quite a lot of advocacy in collaboration with GSA and also UMSU around issues that casual staff are facing on campus, and a lot of them also students. So that's great that we get that. That membership also means that you're part of that wider community as well. So I can talk a bit about the campaigns. I see Natasha's on, so I might wait till she says something.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I thought the postgraduates have got a free membership, and I think that's also a nice tie-in to basically, it's basically just signing in is opting in for postgrads, and the fact that if they're unsure about things, because there is a lot of information out there too in terms of what support mechanisms are for certain groups. But if you go through the NTEU, you're probably more favorable in terms of getting the correct information or the support needed to get something changed or put it back in place for that person. So I think and it's interesting we talk about. I've had some dealings with the unions in the past, but it's one of those situations where it's almost, you said before, you don't need it until it's time, but it's actually better to be part of it at the start so that you are up to date with all the changes and the campaigns that inevitably we run into.
That's right.
So I think, that's the best part of it is just staying up to date with all the changes and all the things that we're trying to get right.
That's right, and I think we've, especially during the COVID crisis, we've had a lot of as our whole sector is really being attacked and left out of a lot of government investment and relief, and as well as international students. I think we've had even more kind of innovative types of sessions for casuals and HDRs as well. So that's one of the good things that the Zoom and the virtual campus has enabled, is that we can just have speak out on Zoom and live cast something and people just jump in and share. And so that it's we also keep that engagement with the community. I think we all know that that it's the challenges for postgrads are not only economic, but the instances of or the degree of mental health issues during your time of study does increase within our community. And so that's even, that's even more so with the crisis. So that's also something we keep in mind, is that we also want to engage the community, not just in the campaigns, but also just like as in somewhere to go where you just want to, is this happening to you? Like Tim said, is this happening here? Is this happening here? Let's do something about it. And so I think that's really important, just for mental health and well-being and resilience, is that we provide that avenue.
That's such a great point, Annette. I'm happy you brought that up. I'm pretty sure the union is now my main go-to social activity right now. Because anyone who's doing a PhD knows that the PhD is completely all-consuming. Like, you do not have life outside of a PhD, sadly. And that's the great thing about the GSA, about about NTEU, is that you're around people who get it. They get what it's like to be in an academic space. And even if you just want to sit back and not, talk in every meeting, but just be there to be part of something which is going to impact the work you're doing today and the work you're doing tomorrow, it's actually very empowering. And you kind of feel like, oh, okay, the PhD might be getting me really down today. I've only written 100 words and I need to write 1,000 words, but at least I am contributing in some other way to this broader academic community, which we all are a part of in some way, and hopefully aspire to stay in for maybe a large part of our lives for some of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd like, if I can, get Natasha to chime in, only because she's recently completed her PhD, and I'm sure a lot of the things you're saying, Tim, resonates with her, and the fact that having Natasha as our senior policy coordinator absolutely helps drive the submissions and the tone of a lot of the submissions we make. And I think that in itself is golden, for us as an organisation. But I think it also drives Natasha. But I think I'm going to try and let Natasha talk. Natasha, can you talk at all?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, brilliant, perfect. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd definitely love to echo what Tim said around staying connected during a PhD and it being very lonely. Sometimes we don't place enough importance on social events and social connections, but it is absolutely crucial, especially for research students and especially for international students who may have moved here and may not have a lot of connections, to really try to get involved socially or in interest groups, our grad groups, for example, just to make sure that you're taking care of your well-being while you're studying.
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. And I think Annette was hopefully waiting for you to bring up some campaigns, because I know the NTEU have got a few campaigns in the background and work. So sorry, actually, before we start that, Annette, the workplace rights is only a portion of your core at NTEU, isn't it?
You mean
in terms of campaigning? Because I know there's a lot of your campaigns are not necessarily about workplace. Is that right?
I think certainly at Melbourne Uni, we take a community approach in terms of what I guess campaigning for the common good. And so those are some of the campaigns that have been most successful, especially last year with where the GSA, AMSU, and NTEU all banded together to make sure that staff and students were allowed to go to the climate strike. And that was something where we had thousands of signatures, delivered that to Raymond Priestley, and just put climate justice, on the table in a much bigger way. I think that's I think that's that's something that's really important. We have a climate justice network here as well at Melbourne Uni that really focuses on thinking through a just transition. But in terms of other campaigns that we've had with the GSA, I mean, we've focused on issues. This is going 2018, but like issues around the HDRs not being allowed to hot desk when there was new staff. So again, this is like that collision of student staff issues, where it's just kind of like, what do you know, not the university not understanding that HDRs sometimes were staff. So you're kicking someone out to, you know, to allow staff in, but not giving them an HDR place to sit was just ridiculous. But one of the big campaigns we ran last year, and to some degree still are, is around wage theft and around different ways that staff and tutors and specifically weren't getting paid at the university. So this had, this meant, tutors were going to lecture attendance but weren't getting paid, or not getting paid enough for marking a 10,000 word, minor thesis, and getting paid a trivial amount. So things like that. So that's where we did partner with GSA, and also put in gathered quite a lot of testimonials for one of the submissions around wage theft in our sector and the impacts to students.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, yeah.
And just talk to me. So you represent the Uni Melb branch, correct?
Yeah, I do, and I'm also a national councillor.
Okay.
So that's, yes.
And so I guess I'm just trying to bring some sort of history for our listeners out there. Where does NTEU, or is there a HQ, or is there a national office, or?
Yeah, so our national office is in Clarendon Street on South Bank. So, but we have branches across. As the main union for higher education, we have branches, or basically that's what we call our unions within the university. So we have them across all of the universities, and in Australia, and also some of the student unions as well, are NTEU negotiated workplaces as well. So sometimes, and often we have, and this is something that is has really kind of come to a head this year, but sometimes we have our tutors maybe doing a PhD in one university but working at another, and so they're able to connect with other NTEU networks in other universities, which is fantastic. And this has been something we've really seen blossom this year. So that kind of cross-university unity and collaboration has been really great to see. So again, it's that this is happening here. How did you deal with that issue? And you're able to kind of take those lessons learned, to another university as well. So, but I think the NTEU it currently has probably about 30,000 members.
Yeah, that's big. And
so we're the biggest union within our higher education sector.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess, it is a numbers game when it comes to unions, isn't it? Because you need the numbers to support to change an issue. So no, it's good to see that you guys are around, Australia, and also with a large cohort there to represent from.
Yeah, that's right. And we have the largest membership here at Melbourne Uni, but also the largest casual and HDR membership. So we've really had a lot of activism within the student kind of staff group as well, because again, you're starting out in your sector and you want to improve it, and want that support as well.
Just touching on that point you made, both of you's made, I think it's not just about numbers, it's also about where those numbers are. Like one of the challenges every union has is, especially at a place like Uni Melb, is where are people active? Because recently we had an all-staff vote, and if we want all staff to be engaged, we do need people in the union from across the university, and that also speaks to HDRs. I know that in my faculty, we don't have a very politically engaged student group there, so there's very little advocacy on our rights, where in some faculties like arts, the students are hugely active. So I think it speaks to HDRs that, it's not just about knowing that there's someone in another faculty who might advocate for you. It's about, thinking about at your local level, how you're going to be active and what avenues there are for speaking out. And in different faculties, there are obviously different hierarchies and different ways of expressing knowledge. I know in my faculty, we're a very positivist faculty, so it's a lot harder to make emotion-based arguments or political arguments. But I think it's essential for all students, no matter which faculty they're in, to think about, what does advocacy look like in my faculty? Because we could have 1,000 students advocating, but if they're all in arts or all in MTHS, it's probably not going to do that much on those more local issues in places like engineering.
Yeah, good point. I wanted, sorry, Annette, did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that this, yes, and this latest campaign that Tim just mentioned, we were doing quite a lot of engagement within all of our faculties. And we have one delegate, we have a few delegates that are HDR students, and they were literally running meetings with 150 people. They're leading meetings.
Yeah, wow.
So it was amazing to see that we can kind of almost flip the hierarchy. You don't, because it's,
yes.
We work in a hierarchical sector and so all of a sudden, we have, it's not a surprise, but we're building leaders at every level. I think that's so important to see that they, an HDR is organizing all these professors to talk about, we need to talk about our work life, and this is how this is going to impact me if these issues aren't dealt with. And I thought that was just so powerful to see. So I just think that we need to have more of that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a few people on the call, and if you'd like to ask a question, please pose it through the Q&A or through the chat, or if you wanted to, I guess it's the nature of our student engagement. It's not meant to be too formal, although there's sometimes a platform sort of forces us to. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and you want to speak or anything like that, please feel free to do so. We have the key people in the room to talk about workplace rights and being part of a union, especially in the academic environment. So please, if you do, feel free to do so. I think I wanted to sort of take the next step is I guess with all our engagements online. We are very much focused on doing the best we can for our postgrads, and especially in this current environment. I guess I talked about someone else earlier today, the goalposts are constantly changing, and so for us too, it's making sure that we keep up to date with all the key issues. But also part of that is letting us know. And I know, Natasha, we have an online form which students can come to fill out, and it can be anonymous to make sure that there are certain issues that we can start addressing. Is that right?
Yeah, so on our website we have a form which is up to try to collect mainly issues relating to the sudden move to online learning and the campus closures this semester, and we've been getting the reports that come through that form and collating them into regular reports and trying to get some advocacy through the university through that channel. We've also at various times this semester set up surveys on different issues which we're noticing are becoming more important. So earlier in the semester we did a survey on placements, which was through our website, and put forward a number of recommendations to the university, and their response you can see on our on the blog posts of our website. And at the moment we're running an exam survey, as we're starting to hear from students who are concerned about changes that are being made or were made to their exams without notice, and things that they think are detracting from their learning experience. So we're really interested in getting more feedback from students on those issues.
Yeah, fantastic, Natasha. Thank you. Tim and Annette, any further information or insights you can give to the students listening now or later on about being part of the NTEU, or some of the common issues faced by postgrads that you haven't mentioned already?
I might.
Yeah, go for it, Tim. I was going to say, go for it.
Well, look, I'm just reflecting on my own PhD journey, and I guess, I joined the union this year, so I was a COVID join because I was very worried about what was happening in COVID, and it's also only recently really became it's hard when you're a casual and when you're a PhD student, because you're not given time, you're not given permission. And I think my biggest advice would be, don't wait for permission. Just go, like, don't wait to think that someone's going to say you should join a union. Like I'm saying now, go join the union. But just thinking about what, like, you know, when I first joined, I was in MDHS to start, and I had a supervisor who wasn't really great, but because there was no one to chat to and no one to have those conversations with, it took me so long to realize, wait a sec, this supervisor isn't for me. And it wasn't until I actually talked to someone who was working at the GSA and they said, hey, you do know that you can swap supervisors. So I feel like there's a lot of smaller issues about the power relationship between supervisors and students. A lot of the free work students do and never get recognised.
Yes.
We're seeing now that there's a push towards doing voluntary supervision, which is going to have a huge impact on HDRs if supervisors aren't remunerated for their supervision and the time they give. All those things, you know, yeah, there might be individual issues or there might be faculty issues, but they are union issues, they are GSA issues, they are issues. And they aren't going to get to the place, they're not going to get to the places they need to be unless those people having those issues are members or engaged. And I think that's really key for me, that, you know, things I was experiencing, if I can now have a voice in the union, it means every other student who experiences that, hopefully they're going to have a better process. And if I experience that in the future, which I hope I don't, I've got a great supervisor now, you know, if I was, you know, that voice would already be there because people would already be thinking about solutions. I think it's so key that voice is there. I think the other thing is that, you know, the university, and I've had many chats with Justin Zobel, the one who's kind of driving the GR, the graduate research, response for graduate researchers, and they've got great ideas, but my issue is that it's the implementation, and if student voices aren't heard, I think that's where things, you know, you can have a great idea, but how it gets implemented, it's so essential to have a student voice. So, you know, every student who's like, yes, I want all these things to work for me, they're only going to work for us if we're loud and the university hears how we need them to work. And I think that's why it's essential to be engaged with NTEU, be engaged with GSA, be engaged with UMSU as much as you can within the constraints of doing higher education. But, you know, if we want to have a better experience, it's not going to happen by magic, because sadly, most of the people making these decisions at the university aren't PhD students right now, so they don't know the challenges we face. So we need to make sure that they know and they know loudly what we need.
Absolutely, thanks, Tim. Yeah, communication key. As you know, as Tim said, it's hard to represent if the representatives don't, if you know, our members don't tell us about what's going on in the background, because only you as students, as HDRs, as casual workers, know what's happening and then what's affecting you guys. So yeah, thank you for that, Tim. Annette, anything from your side?
No, the same with me, with, I guess, reflecting from being a student at Melbourne Uni. I think that and practically living in 1888 in the GSA. A lot of fun memories, but I think being a part of the community in some way is quite important. I mean, I was part of my grad group for international relations and was an officer in that, and also when I was working at the university in my first job and studying, I became I was a member as well. And for me, it's almost like if you're studying full time and you're working, you have a lot on your plate, but you also have to flex your leadership muscle. Otherwise, you do lose it. And I think that it's one way, again, if you're passionate about social justice, you're studying it, you might be thinking about human rights or climate justice, but you actually have to practice it. It's a practice, and you have to do it in all the spaces that you're in. So if you see something that's unjust as an HDR and that you're experiencing, or you're experiencing that as a worker, it's quite likely someone else that you're working with or studying with is feeling the same way, and someone needs to put their hand up at some point. And so that person needs to be you. So I think that that's really quite important, just to have that freedom to do that. It's not something you get graded on, but it's something that you put into practice. So that's why I would encourage students to be part of the GSA and the NTEU, because you definitely need to practice it to be able to kind of use those tools even while you're studying, but also after as well. since it's a whole experience, the whole package that's important at the university. It's not just your studies, but who you become as a person.
Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, Tim, carry on.
That's such a great point, Annette. I didn't even think of this. Like, there's so many skills you learn during union organising. Not just leadership skills, but like planning a meeting, engaging with senior staff, like actually having conversations with professors, which can be really scary during the PhD. So
yeah,
if any student who actually wants to be job ready, I put it in quotation marks because it feels like a political slogan, but job ready, this is a great place to get skills that people actually recognize as skills which are needed in a modern workplace.
Absolutely. Like my chairing ability now is just on top. It's just like, I can share anything. But yeah, I agree. I think that's especially with in terms of COVID and a tough job market, it's also just it's so easy to, like what Tim said, it's like you during your PhD and all you can think about is that, but it's the leadership aspects to it and putting it into practice in an area that's around social justice is really important as well. So.
Yeah, amazing. Look, I just wanted to sort of thank you very. I mean, Natasha, did you have anything else to close with? I just wanted to say a thank you to Annette and Tim and for their time. But did you have any other closing remarks from GSA from a representative point of view?
Yeah, I think one thing which I would love to give a plug for is our representatives on different university committees. So for people who are interested in getting involved in advocacy and leadership, but in a really supported way, at GSA, we support representatives to about 40 or 50 different university committees, and we recruit those representatives. We provide them with training and ongoing support. So that's a really great way to get involved, to make a difference, to give back to the graduate student community, and to build up some of those leadership skills that Annette and Tim were talking about.
Great, thanks, Natasha. And look, yeah, as I said before, a huge thanks to Annette and Tim in their capacities at NTEU and being union members and fighting the fight for University of Melbourne employees as well as postgraduates, HDRs. I mean, at GSA we're on. We said it before, we're all in the same vein, and we're all here to help essentially. So please don't feel like it's something that's beyond you to be able to reach out to any of these groups. It's essentially what we're all designed for. So please definitely reach out in any of the capacities that you can. And just to let you know that these series, webinars 3 till 4, Monday to Thursday, still carrying on this week. We have some sessions, actually a session tomorrow from, we have some visitors from the Victorian Legal Aid. They're going to talk to us about young people and how to interact with police and your rights around that. And then also we have partnerships with CAPS, the University Psychological and Counselling and Psychological Services. And we're sort of going to be talking about mental health during exam stress and how to sort of some coping strategies to sort of take home with you to get through that. But over the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing similar things with our partners from Victorian Legal Aid. The guys at Careers and Employability are going to do a specialised post-grad training session to try and make yourself more employable, or have some skills to be able to put you in a position where there's a bit of confidence around how you apply for jobs or just get that interview happening, as well as some great social activities in the background. We talked about that earlier. They're all through our Facebook page, so if you have the time, go to the Facebook page. We all send them there for people to get into, to sort of navigate through this difficult time for all of us. And also we're extremely open to feedback about any of the other things you'd like to see come through GSA in the future. So on behalf of GSA, our team and our friends at NTEU, we'd like to thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.